Chapter 3. The boy's hands and feet were shackled. A guard lifted him and threw him into a cage atop a horse-drawn cart. "You're finished, boy. You won't last a day. No, not even an hour, in the prison of savages." The cart moved forward. As Rokeeb rode through the city, he gazed at the mud-roofed houses and stunted trees. His emotions felt dead. He sensed that he was meant for great things, yet he had no idea what those great things were. And yet, they were taking him to the most brutal prison on earth. With every jolt of the cart, dust and dirt clung to his hair, obscuring his face. His frail shoulders looked as if they were sinking. But deep within his blue eyes, a flicker of unbreakable strength gleamed. By the time the sun began to set, they had reached the ominous prison in the city's northern quarter. The evening breeze carried the scent of desert shrubs. Rokeeb had not tasted food for more than a day and a night. His vision blurred, his strength drained away, and his thoughts scattered. Sounds and colors swirled together. His body felt as heavy as stone, as if he were sinking into water. His lips had long since cracked from thirst. He wanted to call out for help, but he did not know to whom. Yet, something in his heart bore witness to the presence of a true power that could save him. Then he lost consciousness and suddenly felt as light as a bird. He was soaring into the sky. The world around him was lush and bright. He was dressed in a white robe, adorned with golden embroidery, something he had never worn before. Before he could comprehend where he was, he sensed someone approaching. Lifting his head in surprise, he brushed his hair from his eyes and saw a tall man standing before him. The man had a long white beard and looked old, yet he was incredibly strong. In his left hand, he held a beautifully carved staff that seemed ready to sprout leaves like a young sapling. His right hand, as white as marble, emitted a radiant glow. Strangely, all of this only made him appear more majestic. "Who are you?" Rokeeb asked, startled. The man smiled at him. "Rokeeb," he said, as if he knew the boy well, "do not be afraid. Be strong. Never fear. If they threaten to kill you, be glad. There have been those before you who have died and lived again. Never lose your honor, my son. Do not be afraid. There is one who will help you, and he will never forget you." "But who are you? I've never seen you before." "You will know me in time. You will know me well." Then, in an instant, the man vanished. A bucket of cold water was dumped over him, jolting him back to reality. Rokeeb found himself lying in a filthy corridor. The stench of urine filled the air. Above him stood a guard, a scarred, beardless brute with the build of an ox. "Get up, rat. You're done for. Get up, you cursed wretch." Rokeeb stood, his dizziness nearly gone. The scarred man kicked him hard in the back. "What are you waiting for? Move, you bastard!" The ceiling of the corridor was high, disappearing into darkness. The stone walls jutted out unevenly, and torches flared every few steps. Every 15 paces, massive, ominous doors lined the left side of the hall. Towering guards, their faces buried in wild beards, patrolled back and forth. Some had axes slung over their shoulders. Others carried swords at their waists, and some held bows, their arrows ready. From the corridor, either at its beginning or end, came the hideous howling of a dog. The sound was unsettling. It was difficult to tell whether the beast was howling or barking. The eerie noise spread through the corridor as if it sought to plant fear in the hearts of those who heard it. The guards, accustomed to seeing 9-year-old prisoners arrive daily, paid no attention to Rokeeb. Only the scar-faced guard kept shoving him forward. "Move, animal! Faster, you cursed brat!" No matter how quickly the boy tried to walk, the weight of his shackles and their relentless clanking turned every step into an ordeal. At last, they halted before a heavy iron gate. The scarred-faced guard pounded on it with force. After a moment, the gate creaked open, revealing a guard clad in armor, his mustache so long that it reached both shoulders. "What is it, Scar?" "A new prisoner." With that, Scar shoved Rokib inside and turned on his heel, disappearing into the corridor. The iron gate clanged shut behind him. Inside, the air was damp and suffocating. The stench of rats filled the space. In the center of the room lay a heavy, round iron trap door, while 5 guards paced around it. "Strip!" The mustached guard's voice was cold and merciless. Rokib took a step back. "Why?" The mustached man's face twisted with rage. "Filthy wretch, take off your clothes!" Rokib instinctively stepped backward and fell to the ground. One of the other guards, a man with a crooked nose, muttered, "Hey, Mustache, remove his shackles first, idiot. Then he'll undress on his own." Mustache scowled at him, but said nothing. He pulled a key from his belt and unfastened Rokib's chains, tossing them aside. The boy rubbed his sore wrists where the metal had bitten into his flesh. The mustached guard repeated his order, "Strip." Rokib looked him straight in the eyes. "No. You little cur. Even hardened cutthroats strip without a word, and you dare refuse? Why should I? I won't do it." Rokib turned to flee, but the crooked-nosed guard caught him by the arm. His grip, though firm, was not cruel. "Listen, boy, this is the rule. Anyone entering the dungeon is searched. You have to take off your clothes. It's just procedure. The real horror starts inside the dungeon," the mustached guard said, his eyes gleaming wickedly. Rokib hesitated, then slowly removed his tunic. The crooked-nosed guard pretended to search him, and then said to the others, "Open the dungeon." 4 guards moved to the iron trapdoor and heaved it open. A dark, bottomless pit yawned beneath them. One of the guards secured a rope ladder to a stake outside the opening, then let the other end drop into the abyss. "Go down," Mustache commanded. Rokib's heart pounded, but a voice echoed in his mind. "Do not fear. There is one who will help you. He will never forget you." With steady resolve, he placed his foot on the ladder and stepped into the darkness. As he descended, the shadows thickened around him. He could barely see the sides of the ladder as he gripped it tightly. Soon, even his hands disappeared into the void. Lower and lower he went, until his feet finally touched solid ground. The floor was covered in straw, reeking of urine and human filth. The dungeon was vast and level, its walls and floor lined with fire-baked bricks. Around 20 prisoners sat in silence, staring at the newcomer. Their hair and beards were long and unkempt. Their ragged clothes were stiff with dirt. In one corner, 3 or 4 prisoners huddled together, whispering. In another, a separate group muttered among themselves. One of them slowly rose to his feet. His face was long, his beard sharp and triangular. His head was completely bald, and his right eye socket was empty, a dark void where an eye had once been. His voice was hoarse, carrying a sickening tone. "Prisoners, the arrangement remains unchanged. This one is mine, for amusement." No one objected. They were all waiting for something. Blind one. Rokib turned around. A prisoner who had been sitting alone now stood up. "Blind one." His voice rang sharp and commanding. "Enough. This boy is off limits." The man called Blind One smirked at the speaker. "Oh, follower of Moses, there are no boys in prison. Everyone here is just a prisoner." With that, he placed a heavy hand on Rokib's shoulder, pressing his thumb hard against the boy's neck, trying to make him submit. "Who are you, prisoner? Take your hand off me." Rokib jerked away from Blind One's grasp. "Impressive! The little rat is brave." Blind One lunged, trying to knock Rokib down. A tremor ran through Rokib's body, his vision blurred as if covered by a film. Then, suddenly, he sprang forward, wrapping his arms around Blind One's neck. Caught off guard, the man stumbled backward and crashed onto the ground. Blinded by rage, Blind One locked his arms around Rokib's waist, squeezing with crushing force. Rokib's ribs groaned under the pressure. His breath stopped. In desperation, he sank his teeth into Blind One's throat, biting down with all his strength like a vice. Blind One flailed, his hands hitting the ground twice before he went limp. The entire scuffle had lasted only seconds. The prisoners, taken aback, shot to their feet. The old man who had first spoken up stood still for a moment, staring at the boy, then reached out and grabbed him by the shoulders. "That's enough, boy. Let go." When Rokib didn't respond, the old man lifted him off Blind One's body. Rokib's mouth was smeared with blood. A thin stream trickled from Blind One's throat. The boy staggered to his feet, retched, and spat out a chunk of flesh the size of a finger. It was a piece of Blind One's torn windpipe. The old prisoner led Rokib back to his corner. He had gathered the least rotten straw, making a thick enough pile to sit on. Rokib collapsed onto it. The old man poured water from a narrow-necked jug and washed the boy's face. The prisoners stood silently over Blind One's body for a few moments. Then, without a word, they began knocking on the dungeon wall. A moment later, the trapdoor above opened. "What?" a voice called down. "There's a dead man." A sack was thrown down first. The prisoners stuffed Blind One's corpse into it. Then, a rope followed. They tied the sack securely, and the guards above hoisted it out of the pit. Once his face was clean, Rokib felt slightly better. The old man looked at him and asked, "What's your name, boy?" "Rokib." The old man stood up and faced the other prisoners. Everyone could tell he was about to make a declaration. "This young man's name is Rokib. With his own hands, he killed Blind One. From this moment on, he is untouchable. If anyone lays a hand on him, they will die by mine." No one objected. Their leader, the corrupt Blind One, was dead. The old man, though aged, was known as a warrior, and now the new prisoner, despite being small and frail, had proven that he feared nothing, not even taking a life. Rokib, still catching his breath, tried to piece together what had just happened. But more than anything else, he was starving. Sensing this, the old man said, "Rokib, they'll bring food later tonight.